Welcome to this episode of Amber, the one and only bilingual culture show on BUTV 10. I'm Christina Xu.
And I'm Tommy 秦，欢迎大家收看本期的琴瑟琥珀，我是秦陆涛，
我是许星宇。Here's what we have for you today. As the Chinese science fiction movie, The Wandering Earth 2, launched in the United States, Amber took a look at the cultural ideology elements behind the Chinese science fiction movie. Through discussing with students, we compared cultural ideologies conveyed in Eastern and Western science fiction movies, and anticipated the future prospects of Chinese science fiction movies. Meanwhile, after a famous Chinese actor Hu Ge announced his marriage, people immediately exposed his wife's personal information on Weibo, which is a serious violation of their human rights and privacy. We talked with a professor and students to explore the differences in celebrity culture in China and Western countries. In the end, China recently implemented the new COVID policies, which brought great impacts on Chinese people around the world. We invited professors, international students, and a Chinese restaurant owner in Boston to share their opinions and experiences on the issue.
在本期的琴瑟琥珀中，我们将深入探索登陆北美的中国科幻电影《流浪地球2》。我们邀请了教授和学生们与我们共同探讨电影背后文化意识形态的话题，并对比了东西方科幻电影的差异。与此同时，我们将关注中国知名演员胡歌正式宣布结婚生女后，人们在震惊的同时搜索并曝光了其妻子的身份信息。此行为造成了人权和隐私上的侵犯。通过此事件，我们发现中国粉丝和外国粉丝对偶像明星的态度有很大不同。在本期的琴瑟琥珀中，我们将从社会学和心理学的角度讨论中外饭圈文化差异。节目的最后，中国政府在2022年底更新了针对新冠疫情的防控政策。此次政策的改变为海内外华人的生活带来了极大的变化。波士顿大学学生和在美华人创业者分享了政策放开后对新生活的期待。我们也采访了波士顿大学教授，从经济学和社会学的角度对此次政策进行了分析。
The Wandering Earth 2, a Chinese sci-fi film released in the United States, sparked strong responses both in China and the United States. Let's hear two international students share their impressions and discuss their views on the development of Chinese film industry.
The Wandering Earth 2, a Chinese science fiction movie, was released in the United States in January 2023. While its box office earning has placed it amongst the top-grossing films of Chinese film history, The Wandering Earth 2 sparked heated discussion both in China and also in the United States. Boston University students have shared their impression of this movie, how they resonate with this film.
I think the plot that resonate with me would be like the kinship, the family line, because that would be the closest relationship about myself. Because I was also live in a family that's full of love.
Especially at the end of the movie, it makes you realize how small humans are, but also how enormous their power is to move the Earth on the orbit. To be honest, at the beginning of this movie, I couldn't bring myself into the story. It takes you about 30 minutes to really bring yourself into the story and to resonate with the characters. I guess it's because of the terminologies and a lot of mind-blowing pictures showing up. But at the end of the movie, I think I resonated with the word unity most, especially where they had the meeting at the UEG. There are a lot of scenes focused on how different countries are having meetings together, working as a whole. So I guess it makes me realize how small humans are, but how enormous their power can be. And there's one thing that I think is missing from the movie is the focus on female characters. If there's an improvement that I can suggest, that would be putting more focus on describing female characters in this movie.
The Wandering Earth 2 incorporates multiple themes like family, responsibility, equity, correspondency of choices, world unity, etc. Boston University students expressed their opinions on whether this film is overambitious in terms of its storyline.
As now, we can say that as the Chinese film industry developed and so many people was being highly have highly standard about to viewing different films. So as customers viewing these films, it is better to bring them more thoughts or can bring them discuss more and the later when they after they saw the movie. So I think the different plot is kind of fulfill the whole 2 more hours about the viewing process, and those elaborate plot is kind of brings a lot of thoughts to the audience and they can discuss more after they watch the film. In business aspect, it also catch more audience to watch it.
Since the release of The Wandering Earth's first episode, there has been a heated discussion about the existence of individualistic heroism in this science fiction movie series. A Boston University junior shared her perspective regarding this discussion.
I guess it depends on how do you define this term. Personally, I think this movie they is more about the group scenes instead of putting more heavy focus on any individual characters. But personally, at some points, I feel like there were some individualistic heroism on some characters. For example, when the main character, Mr. Liu, was trying to push others away or trying to save other teammates and sacrifice himself. But I guess you can also interpret this as utilitarianism, where he was pursuing benefits for the majority instead of himself. So I guess it really depends on how you interpret this term, and yeah.
Since the release of The Wandering Earth 2, the audience frequently compared this film with the previous episode in the Wandering Earth series. Boston University students share their perspectives regarding this discussion.
I kind of have real memory about the first episode, but as comparing with the feeling after I saw the first one and the second one, I think the second one brings me more thoughts, and I kind of having some doubts, wanted to discuss with want to search for the answer and discuss with the people who also have watched this film. So I think this film brings more discussion to me, and also I'm very curious about some of the things that would happen next. I was kind of have high expectation about the next film in this series.
The Wandering Earth series is now considered as the leading figure of China's sci-fi movies. Looking ahead, Boston University students share their perspective about the future of the Chinese sci-fi movie industry.
I think it will do better because now we can see a lot of special effects was very mature, and also the plot is very elaborate and do not have big big bug inside. So I think it's it will become better.
So it's hard to say because when the quantity goes up, the quality may go down. So it really depends. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be one and only, but this sequel, The Wandering Earth, is definitely gonna be the record-breaking one. So everybody is gonna remember it. It's the first one that makes everybody remember. Oh, this is a movie. It's a sci-fi movie made in China. It's called The Wandering Earth. Yeah.
For Amber, this is Xingyi Fu.
This is Jingying Jiang.
Chinese science fiction movie has made great progress so far, but there's still a long journey ahead for China's film industry. We hope to see more good Chinese movies released overseas in the future.
Christina, do you know Hu Ge?
Yes, I love him so much. Did you know he's getting married?
Yeah, I was so excited about that. But there was so much controversy.
In early February, a famous Chinese actor Hu Ge announced his daughter's birth. People were shocked and immediately disclosed his wife's personal information, bringing up controversial comments on Hu's Weibo.
As Chinese famous actor Hu Ge announced his marriage, people started to expose his wife's personal information, which infringed his wife's privacy. But this is not normal in Western fan culture. We interviewed Zi Hanyang, Ella Duckles, and Jacob Brenner, students at Boston University, sharing their personal experiences and attitude towards celebrity culture.
I'm actually a big fan of K-pop, and all of my friends around me might share me with the latest album, or invite me to join the concert. I think it's pretty fun and pretty good to join the concert with my friends or listening to the fantastic sounds. Yeah, it is a way for me to release my pressure.
All right, well, I think that celebrities have such a strong grasp on the younger generation, especially through social media, and I think that people just want to fall into a kind of group of conformity with those celebrities, and I think that people will do anything just to fit in and make themselves more like that celebrity that our whole society idolizes.
I think celebrity culture is always necessary. You have lots of people and things to look up to. You have like cultural values, so you need people to like portray said values, defend like a social feeling of like wholeness. I suppose I'm attracted because I want to uphold those values as they've been ingrained in me, of like hard work. These things, everyone wants to be like a hard worker. You do the things that you're supposed to.
To gain a more comprehensive understanding of the differences in celebrity culture between countries, we invited Professor Harris, an associate professor of psychology at Boston University, to discuss the potential cultural differences and effects behind celebrity culture from a psychological perspective.
And so, what psychologists say about celebrity cultures, we've got to look deeply at what human needs are. There's need for belonging. In America, it even got more extreme because you had low population density. So you had these ideas like go west, young man, and you had the individualism and self-reliance of just really having to know how to take care of yourself because there wasn't government infrastructure and there was such a low population density. So in Chinese culture or collectivist cultures, it's important to show your humility and to show that you're not better than other people so that you don't make other people mad and you can fit in and form alliances. But in going back to the frontier, because you had to deal with strangers, you had to worry about other people exploiting you, you had to be aggressive and stuff like that. So that's been retained a little bit. So in America, it's so important to be unique and to differentiate yourself that it's even kind of a little bit okay to brush up against the legal system and to talk back to authority because that helps identify you as special or as unique or standing out. That's all very important. The uniqueness and standing out is really important for Americans.
With the development of technology and the penetration of capital, the main body of celebrity culture tend to be young adults and teenagers. We asked Jordan Liu, a student at Bayes Business School, and Professor Harris to analyze the root cause of this trend.
I think the root cause is based on the cultural and political differences between two countries. China is a more collective society and where people believe in collective goods. So celebrities are expected to deliver positive values to the public, whereas in a more individualistic American culture, there isn't such requirement or expectations for the celebrities.
So one reason why celebrity culture has been kind of young is because young people, well, it has to do with capitalism, like you said. You want to get hearts and minds, like corporations, advertisers, they want to win people's minds.
Finally, Jordan shared more about his thoughts on the rationality of the celebrity culture differences between Chinese and Western countries.
In terms of right or wrong, I don't think it's necessarily appropriate to judge the difference between two countries because I think different countries have different cultures and political systems. They operate with different values. However, from an ethical point of view, it is important to recognize and respect the diversity. More specifically, I think the celebrities have to consider the impact on society, such as young people who can be easily influenced.
Although celebrities are in the public eye, we hope that fans can be respectful and rational with their privacy.
Chinese government has published a new COVID policy based on the current pandemic situation in China. The newly published COVID policy reopens the whole country and removes most of the quarantine and lockdown restrictions.
Earlier this year, the Chinese government loosened its policy on COVID-19 restrictions after 3 years lockdown since 2019. The new policies remove most of the quarantine requirements and allow international trade and traveling. Xinyi Wu, the vice president of Global China Connection, one of the Chinese students' organization at Boston University, says the new COVID policy will benefit international students as they haven't went back to China for a long time due to strict restriction in the last 3 years.
I think it's really good for international students specifically because now we can just go back to China. We travel back to see our family, to meet our friends, kind of in a way whenever we want. And that has been the wish, the hope for a lot of students because I know that a majority of my friends haven't went back in like 3 years or like 2 years and everything.
Xinyi further shares her quarantine experience when she was returning to China. Also, Chinese business owner Victor Cao shares his family experience during the COVID-19 pandemic with us too.
So I centralized quarantine for 14 days, and then I arrived home in the morning.
Yeah.
And what's fun is that by the night of the same day, it was told that someone tested positive within the same building that within the same apartment that I lived in, which means I got another 14 days of quarantine, which adds up to 28 days. Yeah.
For instance, most of my family they live in Hebei province, the northeastern. So they didn't get the fully lockdown. Like the couple weeks or even like a couple months. So their life, I think, is pretty okay. Sometimes, for instance, when their apartment, some neighborhood has some the positive case, maybe they need a lockdown for a couple of days, but not impact too much.
Xinyi and Mr. Cao talks about the recent implementation of the new policy.
So it's really good for the new policy being announced and no quarantine, not tracking the new added cases and everything.
Yes, I think that right now everything is will be back. When we see the back to normal, probably it's not like the back to the old days. Because this COVID is changed a lot, changed the people thinking, changed how the business is doing, and also the change the technology. So the changes everything. I think right now so this is a good timing for the people to recover and to think which thing is more important.
As one of the biggest developing nations in the world, the new COVID policy to China is a chance to reinvent itself and to address the declining trend in development. Jill Ferry-Poister, professor of film and television, as well as the manager of the documentary making program in Shanghai, China. Meanwhile, Joseph Fieldsmith, a professor of international relations and political sciences at BU, shares his thoughts and comment on his expectations on the changes that the new COVID policy could bring to China and the whole world.
So obviously every country is going to do the best they can to stop it. Nobody wanted it. What worked better, we find out over time. I think parts of China's strategy did work. Vaccines are obviously very important. But we're still learning about it and still I think we'll have to learn how to live with it, although hopefully it will become less dangerous over time.
The China that I left was still a fairly open society. I had, a lot of academic discussions with friends, and I'm afraid some of those discussions now, my friends might not be willing to talk to me about them. This is sort of what do we call this? Just sort of a chilling of the atmosphere. And I don't think that's going to change for a while. Yeah. I do have hopes that it will come back.
Convenience in traveling can be brought by more direct flights. We are looking forward to seeing our life return to normal as soon as possible.
That wraps up this episode of Amber. If you want to learn more about the story behind the scenes, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, WeChat, and Weibo, and tell us more about your opinions.
If you want to catch up on past episodes, please visit butv10.com/amber.
今天的情色琥珀就到这里了。
Thanks for stopping by. We will see you next time.
感谢您收看本期节目，我们
下
期
期再见。
断开吗？
哦，
没事没事。
The future prospects of China's